A little over a week ago, a subscriber to my channel wrote that he really enjoyed my solo improvisation, but that he had a wish. He kindly asked if I could break down the solos I'm playing and do a bit of theory analysis showing what I'm playing over the chord changes and exactly why. I've been a music student myself, I still am, and I've spent lots of time in my life trying to figure out why all the licks from the great sound so, well, great. I'm going to make it into a 4-part video, and that's strictly on purpose since I want to try and explain everything I do in detail. So let's get started. The first section we'll break down are the first 5 measures, which sounds like this. I start on a C7 chord leading into an F7 chord, which is the first chord of the chorus. The C7 is actually the last bar of the previous chorus, so the chorus in which the theme is played. And the lick I'm playing acts as a pickup line for the first bar of the solo. So the solo actually starts on the F minor 7. The C7 chord is a dominant chord and leads to the F minor 7 chord. Usually when we solo over a dominant chord leading to a minor chord, we use the harmonic minor scale of the chord we are targeting. In this case, it would be the F harmonic minor. The F harmonic minor has the same notes as the normal F minor scale, except for the flat 7th, which is raised. It sounds like this. Sometimes people think of this scale as sounding a bit exotic, but it's very common also in Western music, and it is used pretty much always when a major dominant chord leads to a minor 1 chord, like in this case, so a C7 leading to an F minor 7. Now we can use the same scale, but starting on the C note instead, using it as the root, and play the same notes as before. It will sound like this. Using this scale would work when improvising over the C7 chord. Actually, it would always work when improvising over a dominant chord that leads to a minor 7 or minor 6 chord. In jazz, usually we like to spice things up a bit, and for that reason I've taken it to the next step scale-wise. I wanted to show you the basic go-to scale when going from a dominant 7 chord to a minor 1 chord, before actually showing what I'm playing in my solo. This is in order to not only show you what I'm playing, but also to show different approaches that would all work in this context. A C7 chord consists of the note C, the root, E, the major 3rd, G, the perfect 5th, and B flat, the flat 7th. Now it is only E, the major 3rd, and B flat, the minor 7th, that are important notes for the feeling of the chord. The root, the C in this case, is usually played by the bass player, and the perfect 5th is kind of a neutral sound that does not really tell us anything in relation to the chord, unless it had a flat 5 or sharp 5. But just for a normal chord, the perfect 5th doesn't really say anything. It doesn't give a vibe, so to say. The major 3rd, however, E in this case, tells us whether it's a major chord or if it's a minor chord, so it's very important. Likewise, the flat 7th, B flat in this case, tells us it's a 7th chord and not a major 7th chord or a diminished chord. This gives us a lot of options since the 2nd or 9th, 4th or 11th, and 6th or 13th can be raised or flattened in order to give tension and suspense in a soloing context. This is what we usually do in jazz on dominant chords and what I have chosen to do here. So the altered scale does just that. It has the root, the flat 2nd or 9th, has the sharp 2nd or 9th, the major 3rd, the sharp 4th or flat 5th, the sharp 5th or the flat 13th, and the flat 7th. So the scale sounds like this. As you might have noticed, some of these intervals can be named differently. Do not worry about that. They're the same. I have included the different names that can be used below, and they're all used interchangeably. For example, you could see a chord named C7 sharp 11, but just as well see the same chord named C7 flat 5. Just 2 names for the same chord. You might also have noticed that there is no perfect 5th in the altered scale. Like I said before, the perfect 5th is kind of neutral and does not create any tension. It is theoretically correct not to include it in the altered scale, but you will sometimes see it added as well. Again, it is neutral and can easily be used. It works just as well, and in the end, it's all about the music and not the theory. We can therefore modify our altered scale to include the perfect fifth. Now we have all the building blocks needed to analyze the first lick, which sounds like this. Start off by playing the sharp ninth, then the root, followed by the flat nine. Then I come back to the sharp nine leading up to the major third of the C7 chord, where I start a C7 arpeggio using the remaining notes from the chord. An arpeggio is simply when you play the notes from a chord either ascending, so going up the chord, or descending, going down the chord. So the full chord looks like this. Now in my lick, I skip the root note, but then I go up the arpeggio starting, as mentioned, from the major third, then to the perfect fifth, and finally the flat seventh. In the end, the lick actually outlines a C7 flat 9 sharp 9 chord. That is the beauty of jazz. You can kind of modify the chords in whatever way you want. C7 as written above the bar is just a basic chord telling us the main characteristics and function of the chord. We can choose to shape it in whatever way we want to make it more interesting. Now we leave the altered scale for a bit and move to our F natural minor. This is also known as the Aeolian mode, and the F natural minor has the following notes: F, G, A flat, B flat, C, D flat, and E flat. So it's the same scale we looked at before, the F harmonic minor. The only exception is that in F normal minor or Aeolian natural minor, we have the flat seventh instead of the major seventh. So the F harmonic minor was like this, and the F natural minor has the following notes. F natural minor has the same notes as A flat major, that's also known as Ionian mode, and the following 5 bars of the solo all have chords that belong to the A flat major scale or F minor scale, so we can for the next 5 bars simply stay in the scale and think of it all as A flat major. That makes everything much easier. I've added a few tweaks to make it even more exciting though, but we'll have a look at it. So starting from the second bar, I move down the F7 arpeggio, going from the minor third, the A flat, to the root F, and landing on the fifth, the perfect fifth, so the C. From here I want to move the opposite direction in my arpeggio, and I do so by going up to the flat seventh, and I end on the natural ninth, outlining an F minor 9 chord. From here we can think of the next note in a couple of ways. The first way of thinking about it is the easiest by far. I want to land on an F, which is the fifth of the B flat minor 7 chord of the next bar. I can therefore simply think of the G flat as a passing note towards the F. So I suppose for most of the time this is the way I would think about it, simply much faster. Another way to think of it is that I very quickly change my F minor 7, or rather F minor 9 chord, to an F7 chord, making it a dominant chord towards the B flat minor 7. This way it will be the same concept as we did from the C7 to the F minor 7. The G flat in this case will then be the flat ninth in relation to our newly created F7 chord, and again comes from either the B flat harmonic minor or the F altered scale. Since all the notes we play in the chord, so the F, the root, A, possibly the major third, E flat, the flat seventh, and G flat, the flat ninth, belongs in both scales. You could pick either and it would work just fine. The solo will then outline the following chord progression. So F minor 9, F7 flat 9, and then going to a B flat minor 7. So The last F note of the bar actually belongs to the third bar, and it's a lifted note that's creating some rhythmic variation. As mentioned, it is the fifth of the B flat minor 7 chord. Here I simply go textbook up the arpeggio, starting from the root, the minor third, the perfect fifth, and the flat seventh, before doing the same trick of lifting in the next note G that belongs to the next chord, the E flat 7 chord. From here I play the same first 3 notes as I did on the previous chord, but now in relation to E flat 7 instead of B flat minor 7. The B flat is the perfect fifth of the E flat chord. The D flat is the flat 7th. The F is the natural 9, and this would outline a E flat 9 sound. Like before, the following E note can be seen as either a passing tone towards the E flat or as the flat 9th of the E9 or E7 chord. And once again, it comes from the altered scale. In this case, it would be the E flat altered scale. So please note that the ending note, the E flat, is lifted once again and is the perfect fifth of the A flat major 7 chord. On the A flat major 7th, I mostly play around the A flat major 7 arpeggio, going from the perfect fifth to the third, then to the 9th, followed by the root in a kind of descending scale motion, only using the chord tones though, as I left out the D flat, and then coming back to the third before doing a jump down to the 5th, an octave lower than where I started the bar. So, like that. Now please notice this jump from the third down to the 5th. This is typical bebop language. Now, before jumping on to the next section, let's have a quick listen to the complete section we just analyzed again. Once you know what is happening, you actually start to hear it in a completely different way. Now let's have a look at the next 4 measures. Before we start analyzing them, let's have a quick listen to them as well. We start off with the D flat major 7 chord. Over this chord I actually play an F minor 7 chord, ascending arpeggio, over 2 octaves. That is F, A flat, C, and E flat. When you stack an F minor 7 arpeggio on top of a D flat major 7, you actually get a D flat major 9 sound. You might recognize this sound as it's the opening chord from The Girl from Ipanema. Even though it is usually played in F major, the original version with Stan Getz is actually played in D flat, but that's just a fun fact. So, maybe you recognize it like this. What you should notice on the D flat major 7 chord is that I'm not even playing the root note, the D flat, but that does not matter. The bass player will take care of that. That's his or her job. We are playing the arpeggio starting from the major 3rd in relation to the D flat chord. So even though we are outlining an F minor 7 chord, we're actually starting on the major 3rd of the D flat major 7 chord. So far we've stayed in the A flat major scale, but now we have a quick 2-5-1 in C major. The notes of the C major scale are all the notes without any flats or any sharps, so it's the easiest scale available, except for the chromatic perhaps, but it's C, D, E, F, G, A, B, and then back to C. So first on the D minor 7 chord, I simply play the notes that can be found within the chord. So F, the minor 3rd, D, the root, C, the flat 7th, and A, the perfect 5th, before playing a passing tone on A sharp, leading to B, which is the 3rd of the next chord. Once again, I'd like to see the A sharp just as a passing note for the ease of it, but technically you could also see it as a very briefly changing from a D minor 7 chord to D7 chord, which is the dominant to the G7 chord that comes afterwards. The A sharp would then be the sharp 5 of the D7 chord, making it a D7 sharp 5 very briefly. Again, it is correct in theory, but I would simply just see the A sharp as a cheesy way of moving from A to B. No pun intended. On the G7 chord, I use the widely used trick of voice leading, using the flat 9 and the flat 9 and the flat 7th. So making it a G7 flat 9 chord. I simply start on the 3rd, the B note, before moving to A flat, which is the flat 9. The flat 9th nicely leads back to the root of the G chord, G. From here I play the flat 7th, which leads nicely to the E, which is the major 3rd of the C major chord. A cool little thing to remember is that the flat 9 of a dominant chord wants to move towards the 5th of the 1 chord. So in this case, and the flat 7th of a dominant chord wants to move to the 3rd of the 1 chord. Playing them together will sound like this, which is a nice little trick to remember. You might, by the way, also, now that I'm thinking about it, have heard it in the song When I'm 64 by the Beatles when they do this. So that's exactly this trick they're using. From there on, then notice I do the same jump on the C major 7 chord as I did previously on the A flat chord. This time it's just upwards instead of downwards, and going from the minor 3rd, from the major 3rd to the root. So major 3rd of the C to the root. And then for the end, I simply play the same again, move up the scale to the D, which is the 9, up to the major 3rd, and then back to the root. That's it for the first part. I hope you enjoyed it and learned something new. Please leave a like, a comment, and subscribe to my channel, and then I hope to see you again for part 2. Take care. Bye.